we move on in the moving forward series talking about the Columbus Crew, who was eliminated a couple of weeks ago, and they finished the season with a record of 10, 8, and 16, and finished the season with 38 points. They have only scored 39 goals this season, which, besides Cincinnati, they have scored the least amount of goal this season than anybody else in the Eastern Conference, which shouldn't be a big surprise because Columbus, they are a team that for the last couple of years are not known for their attacking kind of firepower. But they did give up 47 goals this season, which you think that that's not bad, and that's kind of like right around the average mark in terms of teams conceding goals this season. But when you're a team like Columbus where you don't score a lot of goals and that you are really depending on your defense, giving up 47 goals is definitely a lot of goals to concede. And that if you gave up that many goals while not scoring a lot of goals heading into the season, then yeah, you know that you're not going to have a very successful year. And also, they had a -8 goal differential, which anytime when you have a minus goal differential, usually you are not going to make the playoffs. Now, in terms of top goal scored for Columbus, this is also one of the biggest problems that the Crew is having so far as they head to next season, is that there's only two guys that is able to be a reliable goal scorer. And the only two guys that is the reliable goal scorer is Jerzy Zardes and Pedro Santos. Zardes scored 13 goals while Santos scored 11 goals. They basically scored 24 out of the team 39 goals this season. Like, that's more than even half, or more than around 2/3 amount of goals that both of these guys scored in terms of the total goals that a team scores. And that is definitely not a great recipe for success if you're going to just heavily rely on two guys to score all your goals while other players on your team are not even scoring goals for you and not even contribute. I mean, after that, you got a bunch of guys with 2 goals and only a goal this season. Guys like Luis Diaz, which I will kind of excuse him because he just came into the Crew during the middle of the season, only have 2 goals. David Accam, who is going to be leaving the Crew to join Nashville, as it was announced a couple of months ago that he's already signed a pre-contract with Nashville, and his Columbus Crew career with 2 goals this season, while Josh William only has 2 goals this season. And in terms of the top assist leader, not really a lot assists from this team, as their top assist leader is Pedro Santos with only 6 assists this season. 5 assists from Higuain, who has been injured throughout the season. 4 for Diaz and Jimenez, and the same can goes with Will Trapp. Now, what went right for the Columbus Crew? Well, they kind of ride the ship after that horrendous May through July stretch where, remember how they had a stretch where I think they went like 15 games without a win, and they were right on the same kind of stretch as the horrid stretch that Orlando City suffered back in 2018, and that, at least the good news is they kind of ride the ship and that they kind of almost creep back into the playoff race in the Eastern Conference, but obviously, as I mentioned later, that horrendous run kind of took a toll on them. They won the Hell is Real Derby series. I mean, in the first ever Hell is Real Derby, they were able to beat FC Cincinnati, their hated rival, and the other team from Ohio by winning 3-0 against them. Or, actually, not 3-0. It was 3-1 in the second meeting. The first meeting was a 2-2 draw. So, at least they can celebrate the fact that they won the first ever Hell is Real Derby series against their hated rival. And also, Pedro Santos had a great comeback season. I mean, remember how last season we were questioning what happened to Pedro Santos, who only scored like 1 goal that season, he had a bunch of assists, but the fact that he only scored 1 goal that season was very shocking. But this season, he of course bounced back, and he kind of stepped into that Higuain role where not only he was able to be a creative player, but he also scored a bunch of bangers and finished the season with double-digit goal tally this season. Now, what went wrong with Columbus this season? Well, one of the main thing that went wrong for them is injuries was a huge issue with this team. And I guess one thing that I kind of didn't mention during that bad run that they had, where they kind of were just fall off of cliff between the run during May and July, is that they had a lot of injuries to deal with. I mean, they obviously lost one of their fullback earlier in the season in Harrison Awful for a couple of weeks, and then they lost their young DP fullback Milton Valenzuela for the rest of the season, and that we knew that was of course going to be a huge blow to this team. And then obviously later on we found out that Higuain was pretty much done for the rest of the season, and that the injuries just kind of add up onto this team, and that it just took a toll on this team. And considering the fact that this season this team didn't really had a lot of depth coming into this season, was also one of the reasons why once they have some of those main guys went down with injuries, then they basically have no backup plan whatsoever. As I mentioned, they had a poor run during May through July where they almost eclipsed the same fertility that Orlando City suffered back in 2018, where they gone a long stretch of play, like around 15 games without a win during that stretch. And goal scoring, of course, is still a big problem with this team. I mean, it's been a problem for this team for a couple of seasons where they just, they do have a reliable goal scorer in Jerzy Zardes, but the problem is he can't just do it all, and that you still need to have a supporting cast with him. And for those of you who think that Pedro Santos is that supporting cast, that's still not enough. Like, if you have two guys that is scoring basically more than 60% of your goals this season, you are probably not going to get very far unless both of those guys are able to put up Carlos Vela or Joseph Martinez or even Zlatan kind of goal scoring mark, and the other guy will put up almost the same amount of that, which that of course did not happen with Jerzy Zardes and Pedro Santos. But moving forward for the Columbus Crew, obviously one of the big question is that are they going to be thinking about replacing Federico Higuain? Now, I know this probably is not going to be a popular kind of opinion of the fact that the Crew are looking to move on from Higuain. After all, he is kind of like an ageless wonder, and that a lot of Crew fans thinks that he, of course, will be back next season. And, there's no doubt that he could be back next season and he can once again produce some magical moment as he has done with this team for the past couple of seasons. But it just gets to a time where Father Time is kind of an undefeated kind of thing, and that is it really time that Columbus is thinking about replacing Higuain? I mean, this season he had multiple injuries that he suffered, and that do you think as time goes on, and we usually see this happen to a lot of players that is literally in their twilight of the career, they start to suffer more injuries, and it just gets harder and harder to try to recover and try to get back to full strength and get back to what you were in the before you suffer that injury. So is there a hint that maybe they're thinking about replacing Higuain and get another attacking DP to replace him? I think they should be competitive next season. I mean, I think, as I said, I think doing when I did the prediction video, I expect this team to be more competitive next season. I mean, I think if they have more depth on this team and that they are able to get some goal scoring players that can help them in terms of scoring goals in games, then I think they should be a competitive team. I mean, there's no doubt that this team's defense is still, at the end of the day, going to be the reason why they're going to be in the playoffs, and that I think maybe Caleb Porter, I don't think he did bad in the first season, considered with all these injuries that he has to suffer, and that it'll be interesting to see whether or not if he's going to stay with the Greg Berhalter system or the fact that he's going to implement his system and see how this team is. But there's no doubt that I think this team has enough talent to be a team that could definitely make the playoffs next season in the Eastern Conference. And also the other thing that moving forward for Columbus, and I know this is technically won't happen until 2021, but I'm definitely looking forward to their new stadium. I mean, I know when you saw the rendering of the new stadium, it's definitely not the most prettiest stadium that you will see, and definitely not on any kind of level of the amazing stadium that we have seen in the last couple of years that is built, like Allianz Field, Bank of California Stadium, and Audi Field. But still, it's definitely great to see that Columbus, after they of course had that whole crisis of potentially moving to Austin, and that the whole stadium issue that is going on. Well, they finally figured that out, and that in 2 years they will finally move out of Montpellier Stadium, which I know that is always going to be known to be a historical stadium in MLS because it was the first ever soccer specific stadium in MLS. But the thing is, the stadium just looked very outdated, and that when they first built that stadium, yeah, they didn't think about that stadium lasting very long, and that it felt like it was going to caught up to time, especially when you look at some of the stadiums that is being built around MLS, and how I just feel like it was a matter of time before Montpellier Stadium is just going to get outdated, and that Columbus just have to find a solution of building a new stadium, which, as I said, they will finally built that new stadium. I believe the groundbreaking ceremony just happened a couple of days ago, and that stadium will be ready in 2021. But yeah, either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. If you're watching this video and you're a Columbus Crew fan, what do you think went right with your team? What went wrong? And most importantly, moving forward, what do you think this team is going to be like in the offseason and heading into next season? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.